The Melancholy of Euphemia. The athletic event is finally here, but should you summon / purchase these characters? Well, in this video, you'll find out. Okay, here is the banner, and I'm going to hit the exchange button this time, so that way I don't have to wait for the characters to cycle if I want to go over them. Okay, let's start with Guilford. He is a rank 3 Annihilator pilot, really good health stats, actually higher than Cornelia, which is not bad. Good defense, kind of high cost, and decent melee attack power for Annihilator. Obviously for a assault pilot that'd be pretty good, but as Annihilator it's decent. Now for the effects. On destruction, defense up. Increases defense by 35% for 17.5 seconds upon defeating an enemy unit, and the other ability is a reduce long range damage 3 seconds after placement or deployment, however you word it, and every 20 seconds thereafter reduces long range damage received by this unit by 0.75 times for 20 seconds. That was quite a long sentence, but basically reduces damage from long range enemies. Here are my thoughts on this new Guilford. So the first thing that might stand out to you is the fact that he has really high defense and high health, and boosts his defense, plus increases it when being attacked by long range enemies. So he has really good durability. The issue though is that he's an Annihilator, which means you would think he would boost his own attack power, but he doesn't. He's kind of like the Britannian version of the Lazy Witch C2, but ultimately worse because at least that C2 had higher health. Sure, his attack stats are slightly higher, but I don't think that difference is significant enough. His deployment cost is not the worst thing in the world, although kinda high considering the full package you're getting. Again, this is a pilot that only boosts his defense, not his attack power, which by the way is actually pretty low for Annihilator. Sure, it's better than say something like C2, as I mentioned earlier, or perhaps Uribe, although not much better than Uribe. If it is, I'm not sure. It might be like 10 points higher or lower. But the point is, it's not that impressive. I mean, I don't like Nada that much, but even her attack power is better. And of course, so is Monica. And that brings up another important consideration. We just got the Knights of the Round banner with characters that are much better than this Guilford. So it's really hard for me to justify using this Guilford when those pilots already exist. And I assume most people got at least some of them when pulling from that banner. The reduction in damage against long range enemies is the most random ability I've ever seen on a character. Yes, it's very useful against certain pilots like Dalton or other Gloucesters with that same type of cannon, but generally speaking, that's not that useful. Why not just give him, I don't know, more blocks or something? That way he could be the ultimate shield. Increases defense every time he destroys an enemy pilot, and then increases blocks or something. That would have been way more useful. Simply giving him additional defense against long range enemies is just so random. I guess the idea is that he can be in one position and defend against all enemies, including long range, but what's like the long-term goal with that? I would rather just cloak a pilot who's being targeted by a long-range enemy and then take them out as they come closer. I think that would make more sense than doing this. If you want to make Guilford an ultimate shield, which is also kind of weird because that's not how I imagined him, but let's say you wanted to do that, I think he should have had more blocks. The first ability, increasing your defense, is not awful, but the second one doesn't really go along with that. And this Guilford doesn't exactly work too well with his own Gloucester. Obviously it will boost his skill stats, but if they made his attack power higher or boosted it during battle, it could have made the land so much better. In this case, it's just really weird because they made him a defensive pilot, but neither of the weapons on his Gloucester are inherently designed for a defensive pilot, which leads to contradictions on how they designed this pilot. So overall, not that great, definitely a skip, but you'll probably get him if you're trying to get Cornelia. I was very disappointed with this pilot. I don't use him much on my Japanese account, if ever, even after getting him, and I don't foresee myself ever using him down the road, which is disappointing when you consider that Butler Lelouch and Summer Cecile are way better, and they were also rank 3 limited pilots that came from the past 2 events. So taking those things into consideration, I would say this Guilford is like mid. Not bad and not good, just mid. Very meh and very disappointing considering what we just got before. Let's move on now to the new Yuffie that you can purchase in the store. Okay, here's the store for the event. Just curious what we're getting in this one. Alright, usual crap. Okay, now to Yuffie herself. Let's click on her. She is a rank 3 special type pilot. Pretty low cost, all things considering. Decent stats, actually they're pretty bad to be honest. At least her long range is okay. Also not that great, to be honest. Alright, her first effect is blow away. Upon deployment, blows back 3 enemies within range of 3 squares. And she has a deployment cost reduction of this pilot by 3 and everyone in this faction by 2. Here are my thoughts on this new Yuffie. Now the first thing we should talk about is the fact that she has this new ability called Blowaway. She is the first character to have it alongside Cornelia. Now the effect of the blowaway is a bit complicated, or not complicated, but there's a lot to say about it, so I want to cover that in a separate video. So too long to read, or TLDR, I'll just say that the effect is not always relevant. It's really good in certain situations, kind of niche to be honest, so this effect in general may not be used that much. And because this Yuffie is basically just a blowaway character, since her other abilities is a cost reduction to her current faction, if you don't need the effect, she won't be that useful most of the time. Now, one thing that annoys me about this pilot is the fact that she has a normal redeployment time, which means that if you want to spam the ability to blow away pilots, you can't do that because of this normal redeployment time. And because her stats are so terrible, you can't leave her on the battlefield to help you out. So you're basically forced to deploy her and withdraw her and wait a normal amount of time to get her back on the battlefield again, which kinda sucks. So when you think about that, she's not that great. But considering that we don't have too many blowaway / pull pilots in the game, it's at least worth it to buy a couple of Yuffies to limit break her to maybe level 80 or 90. I wouldn't go further than that, unless of course you're whaling, which in that case you'll probably buy out the whole store anyways. I would say so far, this is probably the worst free pilot you can get from any given event, considering that Bradley, Millie, and Colin are much better than this Euphemia. But still, I think because of her niche ability, it's worth buying a couple of her. But now let's talk about Cornelia Lee Britannia. The main reason why you're probably selling from this banner, and for good reason. She's actually pretty solid. So let's talk about her. Okay, we are at the banner at the exchange area, so I don't have to wait for her to cycle, just like Guilford. Let's click on her. She is a rank 4 special type pilot, has very fast redeployment time and pretty solid stats considering she has a fast redeployment time and low cost. Let's get to those abilities. You weakling, upon deployment, blows back all enemies within range by 3 squares and increases deployment points by 14, which is your cost. She also further reduces her redeployment time by 38.8% during combat. By the way, she has really good long range stats, again, for a pilot with low cost and fast redeployment time. So let's continue talking about this Cornelia. There really isn't too much to say about her, both pros and cons, because she's very basic, and there's nothing wrong with that. She is now the second character who increase your cost on deployment. The first one was Jeremiah. Now hers is only 14 or 15 if you use her Gloucester, which has a low cost of 4 if you fully upgrade it, so it's not that bad. But still, 14 or 15 is pretty good, especially when you combine her with Jeremiah. One awesome immediate benefit by having 2 characters who increase your cost on deployment is the fact that you don't have to use as many passive cost increases anymore on your team. This makes going through arena mode much easier and just make your teams that much better. Just like Bedtime Lelouch, this is also one of the only characters in the Royal Family faction that can increase your cost. So keep that in mind if you're planning on summoning this character or not. Because again, there aren't too many in the game, and the more you have, the better you'll do in those faction battles, which are not till the 1st year anniversary update, and by then, Bedtime Lelouch will be part of the main banner, but will still be hard to acquire. If you decide to not pull from this Cornelia, we will have 2 other passive cost increases for the Royal Family faction that are available on the normal banner, meaning they are unlimited. The first is a Lelouch, which is a rank 4, and the second one, which is coming out literally tomorrow, is a rank 3 Odysseus. So not the worst if you don't get her, but I still think it's worth it for the long run. But of course, it's up to you. Now, one other thing I forgot to mention, besides the fact that she has really good stats, really good abilities, this artwork is also really good. It's one of the best in the game in my opinion, and of course she's quite hot in it, which is another reason why you're probably pulling from this banner. And I can definitely say among all the art in the game, This includes all the Cecile ones as well. This has to be like top 5, top 10. I don't know. If you guys want me to do a tier list that ranks all the art in Code Geass Lost Stories, let me know in the comment section below. Now, the only thing about this Cornelia that I don't like, and it's not even really a problem, but just something to consider, is that the blowaway ability is of course very niche specific, but if you're not careful, it can get in your way. Like maybe you place Cornelia by an enemy pilot you're trying to kill, and you blow it away too far and you can't hit it, and you have to wait for it to come back to you. It's not the end of the world, but still, those are things that could happen. If you use her correctly, that really shouldn't happen. Other than that, I don't have any complaints about this character, one of the best in the game for sure. If she wasn't that good, I would say this banner is an easy skip, and for some of you that might be the case anyways, because the next event is going to be the Halloween one, and we know how broken Halloween Lelouch is, but it's entirely up to you. With November coming to an end, you're probably curious where all the pilots and the Nightmare Frames rank currently from best to worst, and I made 2 tier lists that cover that, the pilots and the Nightmare Frames. Go check those out right now.